Welcome back. It is time for part 15. I think it's 15, now maybe 14, maybe 15. I don't know. It's time for the next part of Avril Crump and Her Amazing Clones by Angela Wolfe and published by Orchard Books, which is an imprint of Scholastic, who have generously allowed us to read it aloud to you. Now, when we left off, there was a lot going on. The real Avril and Dr. Weatherby had escaped and were headed toward, they were in Retchford looking for the clones. The clones had been brought back to Gargoyle Manor by the Avril 2 clone. Boney and Augustus got locked up in that room, but they broke out. Eddie has been taken away by Avril 2 to be examined or experimented on, and Boney and Augustus are now going to try to rescue her. So I'll go back just a tiny bit. Augustus checked himself. Yes, of course, that's what I meant. He peered around the side of the building. The white van was already gone. But how? Avril drove her away in the van, and it's too dark to see the tire tracks. Canst thou not utilize thy canine powers of hearing and smell? What on earth are you talking about? Surely a powerful olfactory and auditory prowess is common to all dogs. Indeed, thou didst exhibit it thyself only moments ago. All dogs? Don't be ridiculous, Boney. But Augustus was looking interested. Any such skill that I have is no doubt a special gift bestowed upon me by my great ancestors. Bonaparte looked impressed. No doubt, Mr. Dog. Augustus sniffed deeply. Yes, yes, I can smell something familiar. This is incredible. I'm a marvel, really I am. Still sniffing, he pointed a paw past the building and through the thick trees. They went this way. Let's go. The bright winter moonlight was bouncing off Avril 2's bald head as she drove the van through the woods. Eddie fastened her seatbelt and shivered. Her hair was still damp from her interrupted and icy shower, and the uncomfortable little gown that she had been given to wear was not very warm. Where are we going, Avril? She asked. I told you, Avril 2 said. We're going to meet someone. Who? Just a friend. Why did Augustus and Bonaparte want to come? Why didn't Augustus and Bonaparte want to come? Avril had sworn the two were not interested in meeting anyone and had just gone to bed. It's not like them. For the love of Euripides, Avril 2 turned and gave Eddie the sort of look that could freeze a Geiger counter. Stop these questions. It's not any concern to you. She shifted gears and stomped on the accelerator. But it's my concern. Look, Avril, you're behaving very strangely. In fact, I'm quite frightened of you. Eddie gave a short laugh, hoping that Avril would join in. She didn't. Eddie swallowed. Avril? The engine yelped loudly and just stopped running. Blast! Avril 2 opened the door and leapt out of the van. Then she eased herself back in, undid her seatbelt, nursed her whiplash injury, and sprang out again. She went around to the hood, opened it up, took one look, spat on it, and took a walkie-talkie from her pocket. Come in, control, come in, control. Gideon, it's me. A little problem with the van. No, I can't fix it. Yes, you'd better send someone down in another van. Well, if they're all busy, you'll have to do it, won't you? We're by the old oak stump. See you in a few minutes. What's going on? Eddie asked in a small voice. Look, just shut up, all right? Avril 2 went around to the back of the van. She came back with a length of rope, just in case you were thinking about running away. What are you doing? Eddie was too shocked to resist. Why are you tying me up? You can't do this to me. Avril 2 narrowed her cool eyes at Eddie. Then she reached over and picked her up. I can do whatever I like, dearie. She carried her over to the stump. I'm not the one who's going to be experimented on. Experimented? Oh, stop whining. Anyway, it'll be totally painless, she sniggered. I think. Eddie felt sick. Avril, I don't understand. Why would you want to hurt me? Well, Avril almost certainly wouldn't want to hurt you, she sneered nastily. But I'm not Avril, you see. At least not the Avril you know. A few tweaks of the DNA. Eddie couldn't breathe. She gazed at her captor. You're Avril's clone. If you do not slow down, Dr. Weatherby yelled as Avril shot past Sunny's supermarket, I will report you to the police. They were careening out of Retchford after Avril's shortcut across town. This had involved going the wrong way up one-way streets and several times around the traffic circle backward. I'll slow down when we find the clones. Red light, Dr. Weatherby howled. Avril slammed her foot down on the brake, but too late. The little green car propelled itself into the traffic lights, its front end crumpling like an accordion. The two scientists were still for a moment. Avril had banged her head on the steering wheel and was blinking to clear her vision. Dr. Weatherby was feeling his face for signs of damage. Satisfied that there were none, he leapt out of the car and slammed the door. Wonderful, he said, giving the smashed hood a furious kick. Avril then staggered out of the car and looked around. We'll have to call for help, she said. Do you have a cell phone? Oh, of course, silly me. Dr. Weatherby patted his empty pockets theatrically. I must have forgotten all about my cell phone when I was being held hostage and threatened with horrible violence. Avril held her tongue. Well, we'd better go into a house and ask to use the phone. We can call a taxi to take us to Leviticus. A taxi? Dr. Weatherby was purple-faced. We can't leave the scene of an accident. It's against the law. No, we're calling the police, and when they get here, we'll report Blute and his bunch of criminals. These things should go through the proper channels, Dr. Crump, and if you think I'm going to continue on this vigilante crusade after you almost killed both of us, we can't report Gideon until we rescue the clones. Avril spoke firmly despite the bump on her head. As soon as they're safe and hidden away, we'll tell the police everything we know about Gargoyle Manor. I promise we'll do it the right way. She looked him in the eye. You have my word, Raymond. Dr. Weatherby blinked. He was just about to point out that nobody would get to let them in at this time of night anyway, and when he saw a light in a window down the nearest side of the street, oh, go and call your blasted taxi then, he said, and get a move on. As they got closer to the lighted window, a sign became visible above it. Bed and breakfast, read Dr. Weatherby. Breakfast, said Avril. She had never moved so fast and was gasping for breath by the time she rang the doorbell. There was no answer. She rang it again. Please, she called out. Forget the bed. Just give us the breakfast. Go away. An upstairs window had opened and was slammed shut again, almost immediately. No, don't go away. Let us in. I'm begging you. She was desperate now. She had not eaten for hours, and there must be time for a quick bite while they waited for a taxi. Can't you read? The window opened again, and a hand pointed down at a sign above the door before slamming it once more. No salesmen, actors, little boys, canaries, amorous young couples, beards, Manchester United fans, poets, ignoramuses, or coffee drinkers, Avril read. Or blithering idiots. But I'm none of those things, she called. I'm a scientist, a very hungry one, and I'm really in a hurry. We have to use your phone. Hello up there, my name is Avril Crump, and I'm not a poet or a... Oh, leave it, Dr. Weatherby gave up, pressing his thumb against the bell. He's not going to let us in, the cantankerous old... The upstairs window creaked open. A very white face peered out and looked down at them. Avril? Chapter 17. The Plan and the Van. Lionel stared at Avril over the shiny, clean kitchen table. She was, without a doubt, the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. I'm so pleased to see you again, he said for the 5th time. I mean the real you. What eyes, what lips, what hair, what hair. Then he pulled himself together. But This is the most terrible situation. I just let the clones walk away with your dangerous double. Avril shuddered. I can't believe they went off with her. I can't believe they thought it was me. That would be because of the cloning, I expect, Dr. Weatherby said. Am I the only one around here with a functioning brain? How dare you? Lionel sprang to his feet. How dare you insult this wonderful, beautiful woman? Lionel, please, don't make fun of me. Avril's head drooped. The news that they were too late was almost too much to bear. The clones were gone. She could not deal with being teased as well. I'm not making fun. I mean it. Avril looked up at him in surprise. His face was blank with honesty. She felt herself turning red before remembering where she was. This is all my fault. She hit herself on the head and burst into tears. There was an awkward silence. Well, said Dr. Weatherby smugly, I can't disagree with you there. That's enough. Lionel made his hand into a fist and brandished it at Dr. Weatherby. It's not Avril's fault. You're the one who frightened them into running away in the first place. Dr. Weatherby did not look sorry at all. Dear Avril, Lionel continued, it's not your fault, and now, he tried to sound as encouraging as possible, you're going to show Gideon just what you're made of. We're going to rescue those clones, and we're going to triumph over that lunatic. Do you really think so? Lionel did not really think so. He thought Gideon sounded completely unbeatable. Of course, he beamed. Take my word for it. Avril sat up and blew her nose on the tablecloth. Thank you, she said. She risked a shy smile. It's so nice to have someone believe in me. Right. She shook her shoulders. Let's concentrate. Now that my double has the clones, they'll be taken to room 237. We have to find the place, and we have to find it fast. Gideon said it was in the woods. Lionel, do you have a car? Well, it's kind of a junker, but then I'll navigate. Come on, boys. Gargoyle Manor was only 5 miles away, so I'm sure the woods can't be far. We'll head back the way we came. She was already out the door and heading for the yellow Mini parked outside. The two men followed Dr. Weatherby, who claimed to need room for his briefcase, relegated Avril to the back seat before Lionel started the engine. They turned onto Reek Way, past Avril's wrecked sports car to gasps from Avril, and began to drive back toward Gargoyle Manor. When we get to the woods, we'll find a road and start looking for room 237, Avril decided as the houses on the edge of Retchford began to thin out till there were none. It can't be more than a few miles away, right? Obligingly, Lionel turned right. Then there was a great deal of apologizing and three-port turning before they were back on the main road. Lionel, are you sure you want to drive? Avril met the old man's eyes in the rearview mirror. Don't worry. Lionel didn't want to disappoint the woman of his dreams, but the presence in his car of the most beautiful woman in the world was making his head spin. He stared very hard at the road ahead. I'm a very safe driver. They lurched onward. Do you always drive this safely? Dr. Weatherby groaned. He was starting to feel carsick with this idiot at the wheel. He groaned again as Lionel wrenched the wheel to the left, narrowly missing a reckless rabbit. Please try to be nice for once, Raymond, Avril said. If we're going to rescue those poor clones, we'll need all hands on deck. All hands or not, Dr. Weatherby snapped. Do you seriously think we can get them out of the clutches of that genetically modified maniac? Well, if we don't, Avril said, I will blame you. It's your fault they ran away. And you're the idiot who blew up the replication chamber and stuck us with a talking dog. Yes, but it was a Torkenwan, Lionel put in supportively. Just not any old mutt. We will find them, Avril said. We just need to formulate a plan of attack. Item 1 in Avril's plan of attack was not lurching into the center of the road, narrowly avoiding an oncoming white van and slamming on the brakes to a frantic emergency stop. To be fair, it was probably not Lionel's preferred arrangement either. His nerves, however, had other ideas. With an agonizing screech, the Mini hurtled to a halt. The narrowly missed vehicle on the other side of the road did the same. You moron! The driver bellowed out of his window. Dr. Weatherby opened his door and doubled over. The sudden swerve had made him feel really sick. You almost killed me, the man yelled. I do apologize. Lionel was distracted as Dr. Weatherby began to groan. You talk to him, Avril. Avril tried to roll down her window. It stuck halfway. She opened the door and leaned out. I hope you're all right, she began. But the driver was in too much of a hurry to wait around for abject apologies. He was already flooring the accelerator and zooming away. He did not even bother to look at Avril. Avril was very glad he had not. It was Gideon Blute. Chapter 18, Lost and Found. Mr. Dog, might I be permitted to ask a question? Shh. Nose to the ground, Augustus was leading the way through the dark woods. Bonaparte had trotted behind him in awed silence for almost half an hour as the dog sniffed his way along the frozen ground. I need to concentrate. The scent is getting stronger. Of course. I do most humbly apologize. Bonaparte shivered as an icy breeze cut sharply through his uniform and into his bones. By the pale moonlight, they were picking their way over gnarled and mean-looking roots and past forbidding black trunks. One particularly twisted tree loomed out of the darkness, its bare branches resembling a witch's claw-like fingers. A fat, malevolent squirrel hissed at Bonaparte from the lowest branch. Bonaparte moved closer to Augustus. He was starting to feel very nervous about bringing up the rear. Augustus suddenly raised his head mid-sniff. It's very close now. The scent is extremely powerful. Eddie could use another long shower, if you ask me. Miss Eddie, Bonaparte called out, canst thou hear us? We know thou art close by. But there was no answer. Let's keep going, Augustus sniffed. We can't lose her, not with my imperial nose. On they went, Augustus's imperial nose to the ground. The moonlight flickered on and off as they passed under patches of heavy trees. One particularly twisted tree loomed out of the darkness, its bare branches resembling a witch's claw-like fingers. A fat, malevolent squirrel hissed at Bonaparte from the lowest branch. Augustus sniffed again. We must be within yards of her. Miss Eddie! Bonaparte's call was tremulous. Again, there was no answer. This is hopeless, Augustus snapped. But my nose can't be wrong. I'm picking up such a strong scent. Oh, Mr. Dog, do not give up. Let us go on. We are so close. Augustus took a deep breath. All right. They continued groping their way through the scratchy briars and pushing aside hanging branches. One particularly twisted tree loomed out of the darkness, its bare branches resembling a witch's claw-like fingers. A fat, malevolent squirrel hissed at Bonaparte from the lowest branch. 'Tis a most unpleasant squirrel. 'Tis thrice now that he hath hissed at me in such a vile manner. Augustus stopped. He turned to look at Bonaparte. Thrice? Indeed, a very rude creature. You mean, Augustus said slowly, that we've been going around in circles? Bonaparte thought hard about this. Then he smiled. I do believe so, he said. The familiar smell pervading Augustus's nostrils as he sank to the ground in despair was overpowering, and he had the sudden feeling that it might not be Eddie's scent that he had picked up. Boney, he said, would there by any chance be that you are carrying stew on your person? Oh, Mr. Dog, how canst thou think of eating at such a time as this? Bonaparte dug into his pocket. But if thou art desperately in need of sustenance, he opened his hand. It was filled with thick, dark, day-old stew. 'Tis a little cold, but I am sure 'twill taste as good as it did this morning. I've been sniffing your blasted stew, Augustus groaned. That's what I could smell, not Eddie. A pocket full of leftover stew. Bonaparte was looking baffled. But, Mr. Dog, thy nose is second to none. Thy supersensory powers are the stuff of legend. How didst thou confuse Eddie with old stew? Augustus suddenly wished he could drown his companion in the congealing stew. We'll have to start all over again, he snapped, and I'll use my imperial hearing this time, unless you've got any unusually talkative vegetables in your pockets that you'd like to warn me about. To my knowledge, Bonaparte said gravely, I am carrying no such vegetables. They set off once more through the thick trees. And if you see that squirrel again, Augustus said, kindly inform me immediately. But after 20 weary minutes, they had not passed the hissing squirrel again, and if they had, they would hardly have known it. The woods were getting thicker and darker by the second. Pushing aside yet another shrub, Augustus's heart began to pound. He couldn't hear any distant sounds. He couldn't smell anything but stew. He did not want to admit it to Bonaparte, and he hardly dared to admit it to himself. They were hopelessly, dangerously lost. Okay, we'll stop there for now. Be sure and check in tomorrow for the next installment. See what happens. Thanks for listening. See you later. Bye.